Are you genetically lazy?
What did you do?
Well, 1, 2, 3.
So I want 3 reasons. Two high-profile education consultants have teamed up to shed new light on some familiar problems. Tom Barwood's a motivational guru who used to be in advertising, while Heather Flint's a highly successful head, now working as a government advisor. Barwood and Flint have been called in to help the Hurst Community College in rural Hampshire. GCSE A to C's, including English and Maths, are stuck at around 55%. The staff are still smarting from a recent satisfactory Ofsted report, which was critical of the school's lack of progress. Staff believe a major factor is a gender gap, caused by lazy boys with low aspirations. Tom and Heather will be making a series of visits over the next few months to investigate. Tom's approach will be from the student's perspective, while Heather's focus is top-down. She's meeting head teacher Malcolm Christian.
Our GCSE results have plateaued in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're working really, well, with some depth and a bit more vigour, particularly since we had Ofsted last year, in trying to do something about that. And one of the things that's going to unpick the plateau of results is the gender gap. Now, a gender gap is about dead-on national average. The only attainment gap
is the
by subgroup is the gender one.
I don't know, what is your free school meal?
It's very low, it's about 3.5%.
OK.
1 minute to go, registration time. We're going to tell you. Doing a meet and greet can be one of the most powerful things you can do in a school morning, just to get a snapshot of who's where and what's happening. Possibly those arriving by car, being dropped off. It will just be indications of what's happening and what the school's particular needs are.
The gender gap is much the same, except in 2 subjects, OK?
Oh, OK.
One is science, which is our underperforming subject, but boys, even though it's underperforming, the boys are doing better than girls in that.
Really?
Yeah. And PE GCSE, the boys outperform the girls in PE GCSE.
Yeah.
History, last year there was no difference in history.
Oh, how interesting. And did they have a big entry?
70 kids, 75 kids. So it's statistically significant.
Yeah.
So
So we need to know what the history department.
Well, I don't know, because, you know, I mean, and history classically is the literacy subject, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
Quite a lot of people arriving. Seems quite late to me. But where is the presence of any member of staff here? Why is no one supervising what's happening here? Is to say, come on, hurry up, lessons have started. You should be in school now. Good morning, nice to see you. What have we got on today?
70% go on to sixth form college, another 20% go on to a more vocationally based college, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the boys, and the ones you may talk to later today, will readily admit that if they're going to go on to sixth form, they need C's.
Yeah, so that's all they're aiming
and that's
for.
what they aim for the lowest common denominator. I think that is a structural thing that is working against us. And I've got to say, if it was an internal, you know, we're not, but if we're in 11 to 18 school, you can raise the bar internally a bit on that, can't you?
What about working with the college? Have you got...
No, we haven't done that. I've got to say we haven't done that. But I do think that structural thing, it does have an impact. And if you talk to the kiddies, they will...
They say that.
Yeah, they will.
But the girls don't?
No, not as much, no. But I don't know, that may be just the inbuilt gender thing, isn't it? I don't know. You may not agree with me on that, but I think there is an inbuilt gender thing about guys just doing last minute. And,
yes,
you know,
yes.
You know, and certainly there is the gender thing of working differently, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
You know, I can recognise that even with my senior team, you know.
Yes.
And then what happens to...
Tom's with some bright Year 11 boys who ought to be doing better.
That's the question I was going to ask. Are you thick? No. No. David, no, it's worth getting these things clear, because sometimes people go, well, actually, no, I secretly think I am, you know, but you know you're not. So, now, Jamie, you're thinking, what's he going to ask me? So, Jamie, just tell me about where you are now.
Behind.
Are you? But behind in what way?
I'm just sadly lazy.
I mean, are you genetically lazy? Do you come from a genetically lazy family?
No.
Have you inherited a laziness gene, and are you a family of wasters that you can actually track back through history?
No.
No, exactly. What do your parents do?
My dad owns his own water company.
He's his own company?
Yeah.
And he's a self-employed, limited company, and it's his. Yeah? So the laziness gene is actually not there. In fact, if anything you've got is an entrepreneur's gene. It's just trying to say, you know, there's this idea that what works in one area, you just need to paste across and see in the other.
Heather's seeing new head of English, Tim Martin. His data reveals a more complex picture than a simple gender gap.
Thank you.
In the Key Stage 3 SATs, there was still quite a significant gap overall.
Yes.
But in terms of looking at how pupils matched up to their targets, their Fisher Family Trust targets, the boys outperformed the girls. Yes, here we are. 35% of male level 4 entrants made 2+ levels of progress over the Key Stage, compared to only 17% of female level 4
That's
entrants.
in there. I don't need to write it down. That's very interesting because it's almost, you know, the sort of bald heading of boys' underachievement is masking some quite significant girls' underachievement.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And then again at GCSE, what we found was, again, there is the gap in sort of absolute attainment, but the boys seem to be closing the gap. I don't think, to be honest, that we've done anything magical which has suddenly caused this improvement in the situation. I think it's the fact that in both those cohorts, possibly the boys are a little bit mature, a bit more focused and a bit more committed, and that's what's made the difference, rather than any sort of external things that we've imposed.
Roland, you lived in France.
I did indeed.
And can you speak fluent French?
I can speak fluent French. I think as long as you apply yourself for a language, then you can speak it. But it was mainly the fact that because I was over there, I either spoke French or couldn't speak to anyone at all, and I was forced to do it. And that's where I find it difficult at school, because there's nothing actually forcing me to do the work.
And no at stake, there's nothing here. So if you fail, so what? If you do well, so what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's really kind of interesting as a thought. I've often thought about this. How could you actually up the kind of at stake to sort of like, so you've got something at stake every day?
Back to motivation again.
Yeah, it's, you know, having that hunger.
My bee in my bonnet at the minute is lazy boys. They know why they're not achieving what they could achieve. They do know it.
I think they're at stake is they're partly bored, partly there is no benchmark of real competition. It's too easy for them.
Yeah.
Too easy. I think they need some real challenging stuff to really push them.
No, well, last night at our staff meeting, my slot was on kind of kids who are only achieving satisfactory when they could be a lot better. I raised it, yes. And then it went on to another item on the agenda, and interestingly enough, when I was leaving, 2 members of staff stopped me in the car park, kind of knocking on the door, just wanted to say, yes, the lazy boys, yes, what are we going to do? And they were very animated about it. And yes, we need to do this, I've got some ideas. So it did kind of raise some energy.
Yeah. I think the really interesting point is that boys' learning is a very good barometer of the general quality of teaching and learning in the school. I think the danger is sometimes in a school that is doing relatively well that you can get a little bit complacent, and therefore what we do is we seek excuses, and boys are often a great way of looking for that excuse.
Now remember, I said I was going to do a little memory test with you. This is the memory test.
Heather's observing Head of History, Nick Stoughton, who's discussing Thomas à Becket's murder with Year 7.
Right there, and we're going to look at that. Obviously, we need to look at more evidence than just one person's eyewitness account, don't we? And we're going to look at that later on, but that's a very good idea. Ross, anything else?
The whole ordeal could have been stopped if the knights had talked to the king before they went out to kill him.
Absolutely right. And I think what we'll see later on is rushing off and doing something when you're in a bad mood is not always the best way to do it.
Couple of questions. Your GCSE results in 2007. Hardly any gap between the boys
and the girls, yeah.
What did you do?
The key area is always extended writing. We spent so much time on writing frames, literally, with practice exam questions, and just getting them used to the fact that they had to break down their answers into paragraphs, each paragraph thinking about a different factor. So just breaking down. as factors and turning even to arguments.
So the history teachers were teaching them literacy skills?
In a way, yes.
In order to get...
In a way, at GCSE, because, especially with the coursework as well,
yes.
the only way you could get across how they were going to get the higher levels was to literally remind them or to stress the technique involved.
Yes.
When we're doing discussion and stuff like that, the boys are always that's one reason why it's usually them with their hands up, because they want to talk about what they're thinking about before they then go on to write it down.
How interesting.
There is too much variation within the school in all kinds of ways, in terms of achievement between subjects, in terms of practices in the classrooms, and that's not an indication of a good school that's making rapid progress. So reducing that inconsistency, I think, is something the school really does need to look at. And how can the best practices in the school be made everybody's practices?
Barwood and Flint want the Hurst Community College to get back to basics. While Tom's preparing a motivational assembly for Year 10s, Heather wants to pin down the key ingredients of a successful lesson. She's running a workshop with senior staff.
OK, I'm Nick Stoughton. I'm Head of History, and that's my role here.
Tim Martin, Head of English.
I'm Philip Newman, and I'm a geography teacher and also leading teacher for the gifted and talented.
And I'm Roger Jones, assistant head teacher, and part of my role is data and linked with Phil on the gifted and talented.
Okay, and I'm Steve Brown. I'm Deputy Head Curriculum and Teaching and Learning, and I also teach science.
We were asked to look at how the school can narrow the attainment gap between boys and girls. When I looked at the data for the school, it's quite clear that there isn't a uniformly group of underachievement by boys, not by any means. So the picture in the school is very uneven, isn't it? There are some groups of girls who are underachieving. There may well be underachievement amongst your most able students, girls and boys. My hope is that we can come up with something very, very practical that's actually about the shape of a good lesson from the beginning to the end, and might have wider application, or should have wider application, than simply narrowing the gap between boys and girls, but would raise the bar as well for everybody. Do you think that's too much to aim? Do we want to call it what makes a good lesson at Hurst? Or because you've got that in kind of theory to what works at Hurst?
We're revisiting the policy anyway.
Right.
It's now 2 years old. It's time to...
Yes, yes. No, the policy is a very good background to this.
Yeah. What we want to achieve is a situation whereby on a wet Friday, when, for example, we haven't had much time to prepare, we actually have a default mode that we go back into.
Yes.
Something that automatically you go back into that mode of teaching without having to think about it too much.
OK. But is very practical.
Yes. Yeah.
And still, if a parent of one of your children came in on that wet Friday, didn't think, well, you know, why are they bothering to come here? They may as well go home for the afternoon if that's as good as it gets. It still needs to be, you know, it still needs to raise the game,
yes,
doesn't
it does.
it?
Yes, it does.
Put your hand up if you think this will either be or become boring. Be honest, because I'm not easily shocked, OK?
Tom wants to shake things up. He believes higher aspirations and sharper goal setting are key.
What I like to say is, who would like to be successful? Just checking. Some people say, sixth formers go, like, in what way do you mean successful? You know. Let me tell you the basic truth. We all want to be successful. Now, for us, an awful lot of us, what I would call school is what I call all check-in, no holiday. And people go, what do you mean? Well, have you ever noticed how, when you go to an airport, how well-behaved people are? There's a queue about half a mile long. What do they all do? They all stand there. You get to the counter, what happens? Some person says, who packed your bag? Is there anything that should be there? They take your bag off you, throw it on a carousel, see if it's security, where a stranger touches you inappropriately. Yeah, fire. Why? Because 6 months ago in a brochure you're two tiny photographs of this wonderful holiday resort, and all you think about is holiday, holiday, holiday. If I sent you to an airport right now and said, go to Gatwick, join queue number 36 and just stand there, and you go, well, where am I going? Well, don't worry about that. Just join the queue and stand there. After about 10 minutes, you'll be going, Tom, I'm bored. You just stay there. Yeah, but Tom, I want to the toilet. Stay in the queue. Eventually you go, oh, stuff this, I'm off. And you would leave. Now, that's how schools for many people.
You mentioned your Ofsted. That was one of the things that the report identified was inconsistencies,
that's
wasn't
correct,
it? And that's
yes,
very
yes.
clear from the evidence that there are inconsistencies between the departments in terms of outcomes for pupils. Yes?
If I have a group that is lively and engaged and working well together and bouncing ideas off each other, sometimes that works best when they have chosen their own seating plan, or rather that results from them having chosen their own seating plan and they're sitting amongst their friendship groups, which is fine by me.
But that's your seating plan, isn't it? You decided that this group will work best if they choose where they sit.
I suppose, yes, what you're saying is that we should all say, right, that's where you're sitting, and it stays the same, and all teachers have to approach it in the same way, and I think that's...
It's an important point, Phil, that if you say that's where you're sitting, etc., then the pupils should be able to do that without argument because they know that's acceptable. Yeah. It's not the same as having to do the same all the time. That's what I'm saying.
So, Tim, what were you?
Well, it seemed to be having a debate about a one-size-fits-all approach and slightly more flexible approach. But perhaps when we're coming up with these ideas, if we format it as a series of questions that you ask yourself, that might allow for, you know, have you thought about seating?
OK. Is that going to be strong enough? I mean, what if they say no? It's not... You see, I think you're an experienced, strong teacher who is able to make judgments about how to work with the class best and what will make the most progress. Not everybody is.
So instead of considered, have you decided your seating plan?
I think that's better, actually. I mean, I suppose what I'm thinking is that the pupils spend most of their time in lessons. That's the most important thing that we do as teachers in the school. And the most powerful thing I found as a head in raising the bar in a school was to have a highly consistent level of the best practice. And as soon as the differences, the in-school variation was reduced, then everybody's game was up.
For me, Negative Norman says, Tom, you're a fraud, a cheat and a liar, and today they're going to find you out. Pete says, go on, my son, go on, I dare you, I dare you. Who do you think I listen to more these days? Yes, Pete. Norman gets a good shut up. And the more you listen to Pete, the better it gets. Now, there's a word you have to associate with Pete. The word is yes. So what I'll do is this time, is we'll do the same thing again, the clap, but this time I want you to shout the word yes, powerful enough that I am blown back through that screen, OK? So, ready? Feet flat floor. Shoulders back. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes! My desire is to be a catalyst, just to sort of up the ante and generate a conversation in the school which may not be there before, which hopefully is picked up in conversations with tutors, with parents, with the teachers who are in there. And if a kid is asking a teacher, you know, sir, miss, are you doing what makes you feel successful, then that can be as powerful as the other way around.
You're just not really used to that sort of way of teaching and that approach. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it's quite uplifting, quite sort of gives you a bit of a thrill.
Also, it's another way of looking at it because you never really think about it before and you don't think about it until someone asks you.
Over an hour later, the workshop's finally generating some ideas.
Anything else that we want to add to these areas that we've identified?
I feel at the moment we've got a bit of a hole in the middle.
Yes, we have, haven't we? We've sat them down, we've engaged them, we've got very enthusiastic about what it is we're doing, and then we've lurched straight through to the plenary. But in the middle, I think this is, you know, we've got a reminder that we all talk too much. So I think this business on talk, as part of deepening understanding, is crucial. And isn't that the main part of the lesson?
Heather wants her blueprint for a successful lesson to be taken forward by senior staff.
My hope is that the deputy head will take this on as part of his work with staff, either through, he's in charge of professional development, so either as part of a professional development day or other activities. But I think if he takes it on and if he is committed to having a one side of A4 that identifies the best practices and then establishes how this becomes a live document that they use and they refer to through all of their lesson planning and their training and their lesson observations, then I think it will be very effective because they've got some very good practice to draw on.
Tom and Heather's final day at the Hurst.
So, there's an envelope for you.
Heather's revisiting English, where they've been looking at speaking and listening.
When you like speaking or something,
two bad things would be like when you're like looking up in the air and you don't know what you're talking about.
Daydreaming, don't know what you're talking about.
This Year 7 lesson's a classic example of the kind of good practice she wants spread throughout the school. Tim's using video clips from a Year 8 discussion.
I sort of agree and I disagree because it...
Look at this chap here. Do you look like he's listening? I don't think so. Right, that's just a taste. It goes on quite a lot longer. They were able to keep up that discussion for about half an hour, believe it or not. So just looking at that, excellent work, and I really hope in a year's time you'll be approaching that or doing as well. What else can we add to our list of features of good discussions then? Have a think. Yes, Jen, OK.
They don't put the person's name who they agreed with at the beginning.
Right, brilliant. OK, did you spot that, the rest of you? I agree with Darian. I disagree with Darian. I agree with Nathan. So what they were doing was joining the conversation together.
Do you think there is the potential at the Hurst School to share that sort of practice across other subjects so that it does become more teachers part of their repertoire of teaching?
I don't at the moment see another avenue in which it could be, a way in which it could be disseminated across departments on a larger scale.
Right.
Purely because it doesn't obviously fit in with major chunks of the school development plan.
Right.
We've got some very major changes going on to do with curriculum, to do with the pastoral system.
OK.
I suspect if I went to Malcolm and said, I want to do
Yes.
whole school inset on speaking and listening, he'd say,
a...
OK, but put it on the back burner.
OK. The pace of change is what is disappointing here, isn't it? That they don't seem to feel a real sense of urgency. I mean, if they'd wanted to change the curriculum, they could have done it. You know, there's nothing magic about September, is there? You know, you can do things before a 6-week summer holiday. I mean, this school ought to be absolutely cooking on gas, shouldn't it?
Heather and Tom report back to the head and his deputy. First, lazy boys.
Some of them will probably come from quite secure backgrounds. They're secure, possibly economically, secure emotionally, and how, in some senses, that can be a degree of complacency because there's no real kind of fight. And if school becomes part of that, it can become a slightly mellow package, you know. And as I say, sometimes you get too mellow, you start to ferment. I think Woody Allen said that, not me. But that's why I can tend, you know, that's why I don't like when people say I'm just chilling out. I worry that they're going to eventually chill out and, you know, drop dead. That possibly in school, you know, you need that bit of challenge, which is possibly about making it slightly less secure, you know.
I wanted to ask you about changes that you're planning, because the school is moving forward, things are changing, and Tim in particular, because I was trying to push him on extending the work that he was doing on literacy beyond the English department, because I just was, you know, it was an impressive lesson and it shouldn't just stay there. And he was saying, oh, well, there's a lot going on in the school, there's a number of changes being introduced in September, and I just wondered what they...
Well, some of them, most are for September 09, actually, because one of the notions is trying to develop some teacher expertise at a bit deeper level, hence
Right.
the after-school sessions next year.
Right, so that's...
So we're looking at changing to vertical mentoring,
Okay.
having more of a coaching model in tutor time, which
interesting.
matches what you've been coming from.
Yeah.
Coming up with maybe a different timetable day structure, maybe, where we can allows us a bit longer to have some bit more depth. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're concerned to do is to try and it's that word challenge, isn't it? And there's the independent learning side of it.
Yes.
And one of the things we feel quite strongly, I think, is that the pupils don't get enough time during a typical lesson to be able to show what they can do. They can't actually work through to a conclusion, and therefore, I mean, we've already starting to put the timetable into much longer slots. So a lot of more 50 lessons go to 100-minute lessons where you get 2 back-to-back, for example. And that's happened quite to a large extent throughout the upper school. And possibly even more so next year. I'm not sure.
So you've already assessed what difference that makes in terms...
We haven't. We would have done by the end of the year.
Right.
Because, of course, we're only halfway through so far.
Sure.
To actually look at the differences between those who've got these longer time slots, of course.
The input that we've had from yourselves has come at the right time because we have quite naturally been doing 2 things this year. We've been kind of inwardly looking at ourselves following a satisfactory Ofsted that we knew could be better.
Yes.
And we still think probably should have been better.
Yeah.
And also quite naturally looking at relaunching the school as you do every 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I was interested to know about your link into where we are with staff professional learning and the notion of needing of spreading that across a wider group of staff and being more consistent. I think we're doing that gradually anyway, and I think we've got more staff, more than we've ever had, who are ready for that. Because there's also a readiness factor, isn't there? You can do that as much as you like to, but if the readiness isn't there, and that kicks in. And I think we're already designing structures that are going to allow us to do that better, possibly than we've done in the past.
The synergy between what we discovered and what they are thinking of doing, I hope that what we've done will act as a catalyst.
I think my only concern or reservation would be about the pace of change, and that, as Tom has said, that if we have helped them, worked as a catalyst for them, then it may have helped them feel that they could do things sooner rather than later.